All right, people, this is a Viva on the Street Pudge Proof of Life edition, because every now and again, a lot of you out there say we need to know that Pudge is still alive and well, and she is still alive and well. And this is the latest coming out of Quebec in Canada. For those of you who don't know, who have not been following the channel, Quebec has been under a curfew for the last couple of weeks, the second curfew that Supreme Leader François Legault has imposed on Quebecers, notwithstanding the absence of any scientific legitimacy to the process. We are now apparently going to be freed from our curfew as of January 17, because it has been so effective at battling Omicron. This curfew that has been imposed on us, that Supreme Leader is lifting the curfew and giving us our evenings of freedom back.
Hooray! Supreme Leader Legault's unscientific curfew has defeated the Omicron. We get our evening freedom back. All hail Supreme Leader Legault.
While at the same time, however, talking about imposing a tax on the unvaccinated. So while pushing one absurd measure that is getting a little bit of pushback from the general population, he is giving us our evenings back at the very least. And I have a sneaking suspicion, I'm going to sit down here for a second. I have a sneaking suspicion that this vax tax is not going to pass. I have a sneaking suspicion, like with the idiotic dog walking restriction after curfew, they're going to pull that back. But they're going to pull that back after having pushed the envelope as far as people would take it, so they can get away with other measures in the meantime, such as expanding the application of the vaccine passport, apparently, which they're going to do to not only the liquor store, not only the marijuana stores, to big box retail stores. Apparently, while they are floating the idea of a vax tax on the unvaxxed, they are also announcing the expansion of the vaccine passport. So it's in this climate that we do this Viva on the Street update on a judgment coming out of Quebec that will make your heads spin. In the war of family law, as we say, family lawfare, there is a new weapon in this war, and that weapon, COVID and the vaccine status. It is going to be used by disgruntled divorcing parents over and over again in the battle of custody, in the battle before the courts, and it's being done now in Quebec, where a mother brought to the court's attention that her soon-to-be ex-husband, or in fact ex-husband, is not vaccinated. And she said that this was cause for concern for her, to the point where she did not want the unvaccinated father having visitation rights over their child because of safety. The father had made a motion for safeguard order, or motion to amend the terms of a previous court order, and the mother seized the opportunity to say, husband is not vaccinated, and I want him to not be able to see our child because of the risks. And wouldn't you know it, I'm going to sit down here even though my pants are going to get all wet. This dog is so heavy. Wouldn't you know it, in a very short judgment, the court grants the order and prevented the father from visitation rights with his kid because he's unvaxxed. And it's even more absurd than you can possibly imagine. Now, in fairness, this is not exclusive to Quebec. I talked about a case out of New York where a judge did the same thing to a father, initially deprived the father of visitation rights, only to actually revise his own court order to strike that conclusion because of the public outcry. Slight correction, actually it was another court case that I got confused with, where a judge denied a mother visitation rights only to revise his own court order. In this case, the court order stood and the father was denied visitation unless he showed negative test for COVID or got vaxxed. So slight correction. Now let's just get back to the cold Viva on the Street. We'll see if that happens in Quebec, but in this court case, it's even more preposterous because the kid at issue is double vaccinated. The kid is a 12-year-old kid, double vaccinated. The father's not vaccinated, the mother is vaccinated, and the court nonetheless said that it is in the child's best interest not to have visitation from the father because of the risk that the father can bring Omicron to this double vaccinated kid. There's another element in it, but just let that aspect of the judgment sink in. The kid is double vaccinated, the father is not. The court said it's in the child's best interest not to have visitation rights with the father. In the decision, the mother had brought to the court's attention that the father apparently is a conspiracy theorist, is an anti-vaxxer, does not agree with the public health measures. And the court actually took note of this and said that on his Facebook page, he had shared posts about going to protests. He had shared posts about masks allegedly not working, in his opinion. And the judge held this against the father to say that the father is a sufficient conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, that his decision to not get vaccinated makes no sense to the judge, such that the judge can deprive the child of visitation rights with the father until February 8th, when the safeguard order is going to be amended or revised. Now, the one caveat in all of this is that the judge did invoke the fact that apparently the mother has a new boyfriend and has 2 kids with that new boyfriend, either his or I don't know whose they are, doesn't really matter. But those kids are not old enough to get vaccinated. So the judge said that an additional factor to consider is that the unvaccinated father, who is willfully unvaccinated, poses a risk to the 2 other kids from the mother and her new relationship because they're too young to get vaccinated. And that also factored into the court's decision. This is for, by the way, the Omicron variant, which the judge did say he had judicial notice of the fact that it's less lethal, but it's more contagious. And so that somehow justifies the court's order to deprive this father of visitation rights. It is absolute madness. It is absolute madness that a judge can take judicial notice of a bunch of facts, alleged facts, can basically render this decision in the absence of any medical expertise whatsoever by the sounds of the judgment. No medical expert evidence was adduced. And the judge basically says, look, it's judicial knowledge that it might be less lethal but more contagious. The father's decision to not get vaccinated, according to the father, only affects himself. He might be more at risk for certain side effects, certain more serious symptoms if he does catch it, which, according to the judge, illustrates the father's unreasonable nature in that he understands there may be some benefits to the vaccine and nonetheless refuses to take it, which the judge doesn't understand, and factored into the judge's decision. The fact that COVID and the vaccine is going to be used and weaponized in family lawfare is offensive enough on its face. But the fact that you have judges that are effectively imposing their own personal belief system, their own scientific belief, because there was no evidence of a scientific nature adduced in this case, they are basically imposing their own personal views, their personal ideologies in the context of family law to deprive children of visitation and parental rights. I mean, we'll see what happens here. But if this judgment stands, what you basically have is the court, I mean, they already have that power, but the court basically saying parental rights are secondary to what a judge thinks is warranted, justifiable, and appropriate under the circumstances, even if that trumps the most basic parent-child relationship, the most fundamental of rights, which is the right that a parent has with his or her child. We'll see what happens. I'll be following it, but if this is allowed to stand, if this becomes precedent, then what a dangerous precedent it is, because it basically means that parents really are losing the most fundamental of their rights, both over their own autonomy and their own bodies, and the family unit that is family. Basically being second-guessed, being subjugated to the will, and the politics of the court. Now, to be continued, to be discussed on Sunday with Robert Barnes during our live streams. Pudge is off, she's off. If you like my videos, you like my content, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, share this around, let the world know what's going on in Quebec. It's a mad world. It's a mad world that is facilitated by mad politics. With that said, everyone, peace.